At the University of Toledo, we are surrounded by experts. And we tap into those experts here on Rocket Talk.
The British royal family has been in the spotlight even more than usual recently. The unsurfacing of Prince Andrew's connections to Geoffrey Epstein, Prince Harry's public exit from the royal family, the death of the Queen, and the massive popularity and controversy of Netflix's The Crown. It seemed as if we're at a moment where the future of the royal family is very uncertain. Here to help us make sense of the contemporary moment and the future of the monarchy are two scholars from the UToledo History Department, Dr. Kristen Geaman and Dr. Shingi Mavima. Welcome to you both. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So most of us here in the U.S. really know the royal family as tabloid figures. Can you talk about why that is and contextualize kind of our perception of them as popular entertainment figures?
Sure. So there's definitely a history of celebrity and how that celebrity status works with the royal family. And so there's a kind of a famous scholar named Brian Cohen who has analyzed this, talking about how probably in the 18th century, so 1700s, around the time of George III, last king of America, we kind of moved from what's often referred to as sacral celebrity into what's more easily identified as modern celebrity. And so sacral celebrity applies to people such as monarchs who are maybe actively ruling, also applies to saints, things like that. People who have religious and political fame, celebrity, versus modern celebrity, which is really founded on media attention and artistic attention and things like that. And so it's in the 1700s that the British royal family sort of moves from that kind of sacral celebrity a bit more into modern celebrity, where there's a lot of popular culture that is covering their scandals and poking fun at them and that sort of thing.
Do they want to be these kind of modern celebrities? Is this something that they lean into, or is this happen against their will?
So I would say, I think in the beginning, in the 1700s, it was probably a little bit against their will, because partially it became something to sell paper. The papers liked it because it helped them sell. George III actually had a number of ill-behaved sons who had lots of mistresses and illegitimate kind of under-the-table marriages and stuff, and that was great fodder to sell newspapers and that sort of thing. So in that regard, I think it happened. They didn't expect it to happen. It kind of happened against their will. At the same time, they also, even back then, understood that they could use it to spin their fame, because when George III fell ill, he got very sympathetic coverage in the newspapers, and then that helped increase sympathy for the monarchy. And when some young royal family members died, that was covered very sympathetically in the newspapers, and that kind of increased sympathy for them. So I do think they know how to use it both ways.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm no expert in this subject. My expertise is, researching this episode and watching The Crown. But just from that, I gather that there's often a pretty contentious relationship between the royal family and the press.
Indeed. And one of the things we have to think about too is the diversity of personalities within the family itself, right? So where you have certain people who are more reserved and reticent in that way than some folks who have historically played right into the fame. Then as well, to think about the idea that the press in its international diversity, right? And one of the things is the British press would lean into the appeal of the royal family as part of pushing that continued British prestige overseas. Then you take a place like the U.S., where definitely in recent times the idea of a king or a monarchy is a foreign concept, right? Almost a romanticized concept, where our access to it is via things like The Crown and the fairy tales. And there's almost like this romanticized ideal of the royal family and its complexities, and that's part of the fascination, especially from the standpoint of the U.S. with the royal family.
Yeah, and I mean, just it seems interesting to me, especially since that was something that the U.S. actively tried to break away from. I mean, why is it that we're so fascinated with, with this kind of ruling structure that we wanted nothing to do with and we take pride on, being so different from?
I think maybe it goes back to that celebrity kind of culture. We really like fairy tales in the United States, and of course we have so many Disney princesses and all that sort of thing. So I think it is more of a celebrity kind of thing, that these are people that feel like a fairy tale playing out in real life, and we can just kind of look at them through the media. Also, we don't have to pay for them, and we always love a good deal in the United States, so we're not financially responsible for them. We just get to see their pictures and that sort of thing. I think maybe that helps.
Well, and even the way that I've been talking about it so far, we see them as this way, or the press, really even kind of, there's an assumption there I'm talking about, the U.S. press or the British press. Clearly there's a lot more to the world than just that. And the British monarchy has been certainly linked to some pretty troubling imperialistic practices historically. How is the royal family perceived, out maybe in those places where they've been affected by some of those practices, and then just the larger world in general?
So that's an important question, right? And I will use the recent passing of Queen Elizabeth II as a sort of entry point into this part of the discourse, where there were, I could tell, maybe three main narratives that were prevalent in regards to eulogizing her. The first one I would say is a large indifference, right? And maybe that's also born of the fact of her age and her increasingly more ceremonial role as the head of state and not being directly involved in politics. A lot of people were indifferent. There were, however, people of a certain age, people of a certain vantage, people who may have been around in her younger years, her earlier years, who were very sympathetic and who were, and maybe just so in so much as it reminds them of a different time. It's a nostalgic sympathy, right? Then there were, especially among academics and other sort of nationalists, where the response was a little more visceral and it wasn't so much that they were glad she was dead or celebrated the death, but more so pushing back against the expectation that they should care, right? You get watching some soccer matches from Scotland, where fans were supposed to do a minute of silence and folks start chanting "Lizzie's in a box" or something like that, Then among academics as well, especially from there was a great tweet that had gone out that depicted sort of the Captain Planet meme, where it says this is where people came together: the Irish, the Indians, the Caribbeans, and the Africans, all sort of putting their hands together in a combined against. So those are three distinct narratives that emerged, right? But of course, the appeal of the younger folks, if you're talking about Harry and William, is very much the appeal of celebrities. The same way, it's not so much that they're the crown, but more so that they're celebrities. So in the same way that people are fascinated by other Hollywood figures as well, there's also that fascination with these characters, with the younger people, yeah.
And I mean, just mentioning Harry there, and I mean, this kind of, when Harry left the royal family, I mean, the coverage that I saw over in the U.S. seemed to be pretty positive. Am I reading that right? I mean, and does that surprise you? I mean, and what does that tell us about how we understand the royal family?
I thought it was overwhelmingly positive, and I guess I was sort of proud. I don't know, proud might be not the right word, but I was grateful that the U.S. seemed to understand, because I thought the coverage in the UK was very bad. And if you look at the coverage in the UK, how they covered his wife, Meghan Markle, it was extremely racist. And so I was glad that U.S. media did not go as much down that path when they left, and so they seemed more sympathetic to why they were leaving. And I think I think it makes sense that we'd be interested in that, particularly since they came to live in the United States. I think it almost makes us feel like we won one. We got one to come over here or something.
Well, we got 1 minute left, and I want to make sure I get to this question. A recent poll conducted last year found that 41% of people in England aged 18 to 24 would like to do away with the institution of the crown and have an elected head of state. Does this surprise you? And what does this tell us about the future of the monarchy?
Well, I think that does surprise me in as much as it, especially since this was in Great Britain, where this continues to be a symbol of the nation, right? But the nation itself has been going through a lot of polarization, what with Brexit and some of the secessionist movements coming out of this. So the number itself doesn't really surprise me. I think the role of the royal family is going to continue to become more and more ceremonial, and this is just the pathway going down. Great. Indeed.
Oh. Well, I wish we could keep talking about this. Seems like there's plenty there, but unfortunately, we are out of time. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Rocket Talk.